What's going on? VitalSyntax here. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a review of the Razer Mamba, which is a wireless gaming mouse that's going to cost you about $130. Now, typically when you hear wireless and gaming in the same sentence, a lot of people are going to run away because wireless technology usually brings in problems like input delay and lag, as well as having to worry about battery life and if your mouse dies in the middle of playing a game. And although this mouse is not perfect, it's one of the best wireless mice I've ever seen on the market. I've been using it for about a week now. Unfortunately, I'm going to be returning it, and I'll talk about why later in the video. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys an overview of the hardware that's included with the mouse. Then I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons of the mouse, and then give you a overview of, or a summary at the end. So let's first take a look at the mouse itself. So let's look at the front here. We've got your left and right click. Sorry, there's a little bit of fingerprints here. It is a matte finish, so it's not going to show a lot of dust and things like that, and it's very easy to clean. You got your left and right click. I'll give you a little audio sample. Very nice and responsive. You got a scroll wheel here, which is clicky. Does not have left to right scroll, which is kind of unfortunate. The scroll wheel is actually illuminated. You can see these two white lines on each side. Those are the LED lighting. You can choose basically any color in the rainbow to set that to, which is really cool. Over here on the left side, you've got two buttons right here, which by default are your DPI adjustments, so you can turn it up or turn it down. There's actually a little LED light down here that's not turned on because the mouse is on in off mode, but it'll show you what DPI setting you're using, also what battery life you have, and it'll start to flash when you get low battery. You've got your back and forward button here as well. Let's move over to the bottom here. We've got actually a USB cable. It's kind of hard to see. Flip it this way. There it is. I'll talk about that in a little bit. You've got some feet here. Very smooth. You've got the on-off switch. I have it set to off for now. You've got an eject button, which I'll talk about a little bit later. A sync button. Two sensors here. This is the actual laser that's going to detect your movement. And a lift dot detection and surface calibration button, or a laser. What that does is it will detect how far the mouse is from the surface, so you can set in the Razer Mamba drivers how far you want it to stop, or how far you want it to be lifted off of where it stops tracking. So that's a very nice feature. And also has surface calibration, so whether you're using on a hardwood surface, a soft mouse pad, or a hard mouse pad, it'll calibrate to work the best on whatever surface you're using. Here are the contact points to set it on the docking station to charge the battery. And here's the battery casing, and you see there's a little ledge here, and that's what the mouse sits on when it's on the dock. Let's look at the sides here. We've got some glossy finish, and then we've got some rubberized edges here. Same with on the other side, the glossy finish and some rubberized edges. Those rubberized edges are very good for claw grip if you have it like this, and you pick the mouse up to move it around on your mouse pad. Alright, so let's put the mouse to the side and talk about the docking station next. This is a all glossy finish, and it has the nice Razer logo here on the front. That's not illuminated, by the way. These are the contact points right here for recharging the mouse on the docking station. There's a little ledge it sits on. Looking at the bottom, you've got a lot of rubber edge here, so it doesn't move around. And this edge part right here on the bottom is actually an LED lighting as well. It goes all the way around the rim, so you can have LED lights on this as well as the mouse scroll wheel, and you can once again choose any color in the rainbow. On the front, we've got the sync button, so you can sync the wireless mouse and the receiver together. And then on the back here, you've got the USB port, which is kind of hidden inside of there. Alright, so now let's talk about the last piece of hardware you get with this mouse, and that's the USB cable. So here's the end that actually plugs into the computer. It's gold plated, and then the other end, which plugs into either the mouse or the receiver, is kind of a weird shape like that, and I'll show you how it works. So if you want to use the mouse in a wireless scenario, you take it and plug it into the back here, and now it's sending wireless signal to the base station, which goes to your computer. If you want to use it in wired mode, and keep in mind when you're wireless, you're obviously using the battery. If you want to use it wired mode, just plug this into the bottom. Now you're using the mouse in wired mode. Now you're not using the battery, instead you're sending the signal over the wire as well as charging the battery by sending electricity back to the mouse. Now this is the eject button I was talking about earlier. Just push that to the side and you can pull the cable out there. So pretty cool that you can use it in either wired or wireless mode. So that's an overview of the hardware that's included. Now let's talk about some of the pros and cons when it comes to performance, design, and all those other aspects. So let's first start with the cons. One of the ones I've already talked about is the scroll wheel doesn't have left and right scrolling, which is kind of unfortunate. And most modern gaming mouse or just high-end mice in general have the left and right scroll, although I don't really use that all that much, so it wasn't that big of an issue for me. The second complaint is that they advertise a 16-hour battery life. It still has good battery life, but it's not the full 16. I only got about 11 hours battery life with the LED on the scroll wheel turned off. If you have it turned on, you're only going to get about 7 or 8. So it's kind of a bummer that they misadvertise that battery life. Another problem I had with this mouse is that the drivers, the software that you can change the settings, take a very long time to load when in wireless mode. If you have the USB cable plugged directly into the mouse, it loads very quickly, just like you'd expect. But when you're loading over the wireless connection, it's kind of laggy, and the reason for that is because it actually stores all your settings on the mouse itself instead of storing them on the computer. That way, if you take it to a different computer that's not your computer, you can bring your settings and all your different options and stuff with you, which is a cool feature in itself. But it's kind of frustrating that it takes so long for those drivers to load. Another downside is the wireless technology, which is also going to be a pro of this mouse. I'll talk about later. But the reason that it's a downside is not because that it has it. It's a downside because it's not responsive. It's kind of laggy. Now this mouse boasts a 1 millisecond response time and a 1000 hertz polling rate, which means it's sending 1000 reports back to the wireless receiver per second. But in my tests, it was definitely a 1 millisecond response time mouse when in wired mode. It felt just as responsive as my Razer Death Adder, which is the mouse I'm currently using, and also as the G9X from Logitech, which is my previous mouse. So very responsive mouse when in wired mode, but when in wireless mode, I noticed a lot of problems with the tracking. Sometimes it would jitter around and feel like it had some interference, and also it felt like it had maybe like 5 to 10 milliseconds of response time instead of that 1 millisecond response time, which might not be a huge issue for a lot of people, but for first-person shooter games like myself, latency is one of the most important things, whether that's your mouse latency, your keyboard latency, your monitor latency, or even your latency on the internet and the connection to the server. So you don't want to use this mouse in wireless mode while playing first-person shooters or games that require very, very pinpoint precision for aiming or whatnot. So those are my cons of the mouse. Let's go on and talk about some of the pros. One of the pros is that it has a very nice look to it. You can see the matte finish. The overall design and layout and feel of the mouse is very, very well done. Especially the LED lighting makes the mouse just one of the coolest and sexiest mice I've ever seen. Especially that you can change the color to whatever you want, whether you want it to match other LED lighting you have, maybe on your case or on your keyboard or wherever it is. You can match those colors up because this one has, customizable colors. Another good advantage is the wireless. Now, I just said it was a disadvantage or a con of the mouse more because it has latency, which you can't really avoid latency over wireless technology. But it's an advantage at the same time because for people that don't have their keyboard and mouse at their desk, maybe they're sitting on the couch using it on their TV, you can use the mouse without having to run cables between the middle of your living room. Also, it's nice that you don't have a cable that's kind of slowing you down because with wired mice, you have your USB cable running out here. When you move your mouse around, it's going to drag on the table. It might catch on the edge of the desk. It might catch on your mouse pad, and it does feel like it kind of slows your movement down a tad bit. And it's very, very nice that you have this fully just feels so much freer. So that's another advantage of being wireless. Another really cool feature is one I've already talked about, which is that you can use this mouse in wired or wireless mode. So if you're maybe using it on a TV playing a movie, you can use it in wireless mode, and then when you get into a first-person shooter, you want to be really responsive, you can plug it in and use it in the wired mode. Another cool feature is how the 1000 hertz polling rate, as well as how good the sensor is. Which is a 6400 DPI sensor, which is way, way over the top. Basically, the higher the DPI, the more sensitive your mouse is. Nobody should ever use anything above 3000. You don't want a super high sensitivity, or else you're not going to be able to be very accurate. But they do allow you, if you wanted to go up to 6400 DPI, which is an insanely high number. So it definitely has a very, very accurate and good sensor inside. Now, one issue I had with the sensor, other than when in wireless mode and it was a little laggy and there was some choppiness, there was some slight drifting. I don't know what was causing it. I'm also using a Razer Goliath as mouse pad, so it should be working perfectly fine with another Razer product. But the mouse cursor drifted down and to the right occasionally, randomly. I don't know what was causing it, but it was kind of annoying. Just something to keep in mind. Alright, so those are some of the cons and the pros of this mouse. Now I'm going to just give you a quick overview and summary of the review and talk about whether or not you should buy this mouse for your different situations. So I don't think that if you're a first-person shooter, I don't think this is the right mouse for you because it's a very expensive mouse. It's going to run you $130. And if you're going to be playing FPS games, you're going to be using it in wired mode. You don't want to use the wireless while playing first-person shooters. And if you're using wired, then you're kind of defeating the purpose of buying this mouse in the first place because the biggest feature is that it's wireless, and that's why it has an expensive price tag. So if you're a first-person shooter and you want a mouse like this, go for the Razer Death Adder. It's almost exactly the same. It's very similar, at least on the outside, on the shape and look and feel of the mouse. It's a little bit lighter. It has a different sensor and things like that, but it's overall kind of similar. But that one's a lot cheaper. It's about half the price, and you just don't have that wireless technology, which you're not going to use if you're a first-person shooter player. Now, if you're an MMO player, I would not also stay away from this mouse because Razer also sells a very high-end MMO mouse that has a bunch of macro keys on it that you can bind to whatever you want in game, and a lot of MMO players need those macro keys, so you should look for the Razer's wireless MMO mouse if you want to get a wireless mouse. So if you're somebody that doesn't play first-person shooters, doesn't play MMO games, plays something other than those two genres, and you need a wireless mouse, then this is actually a pretty good option. It's definitely better than just a non-gaming oriented wireless mouse because those had a lot of input delay. I have a Logitech MX Revolution from about 2 years ago, actually more about 1 year ago, and it's just very input lag intensive because it's just not oriented for gamers. Another one to keep in mind is the Logitech G700, which is the Logitech wireless gaming grade mouse. So if you're interested in that, you probably check out that one as well. So overall, this is a very good looking mouse. Unfortunately, it's not for me. It's probably not for a lot of FPS shooter gamers out there. But what are you going to do? Not everything fits for everybody. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it helped you out in your decision making process if you're looking at purchasing this mouse. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.